From the story. He was chained beside her in that alien prison. She said mating was our only escape. Sci-Fi HFY. The first thing Bob Carter noticed when he woke up was the cold. Not the kind of cold that came from weather, but the sterile metallic cold of alien machinery, like someone had built an entire prison out of scalpels. His arms were bound above him in a spread eagle position, metal restraints tight around his wrists. The floor beneath him hummed faintly with energy, and the air smelled like ozone and antiseptic. His mouth tasted like copper and defiance. He blinked against the dim greenish light of the cell, eyes adjusting slowly. It was circular, maybe 15 feet across, and disturbingly smooth. No seams, no corners. Just walls that seemed to breathe. To his left, a figure stirred. She was tall, lean, and scaled. Gray-blue skin shimmered faintly under the pulsing light. Her face was sharp, all angles and slitted eyes, and her limbs ended in clawed digits. Yet, despite her obviously alien biology, she wasn't ugly. Just unsettling. And currently glaring at him with an expression that could strip paint. "Human," she said flatly, her voice accented and clipped. "You are awake. Excellent. We must discuss escape." Bob squinted. I'm Bob. "Nice to meet you too, space lizard." Her eyes narrowed. "Zelina of the fourth ascendant lineage. I'm Zarkari. Not a space lizard." "Right. Apologies, Zelina. I was going to go with Sneakra the Magnificent, but figured I'd keep things classy." She ignored the sarcasm. "You have been assigned to this cell because your physiological data is considered irregular. The curator AI cannot classify you under existing profiles. This may be to our advantage." Bob pulled at his chains experimentally. "That's good, because I was worried this place didn't do room service. The curator is an adaptive intelligence. It studies its inmates for psychological manipulation, reconditioning, or biological deconstruction. Standard procedure." "That's a hell of a standard. You are human. Your species is designated an unstable cognitive class. The AI does not know what to do with you. That may buy us time." Bob let out a breath and leaned his head back against the curved wall. "Great. Love being a mystery. But let's cut to the part where we escape." Zelina shifted slightly, the chains on her arms clinking softly. "There is a loophole. A diplomatic protocol hardwired into the curator's behavioral matrix. If two incompatible species form a bonded union, the AI must initiate a reclassification assessment. During this window, security parameters are relaxed." Bob stared at her. "Bonded union?" "Yes. Like a prison gang." Her slitted eyes blinked slowly. "Like mating." Bob coughed. "Oh." There was a long silence. "You're serious," he finally said. "I am not capable of frivolity. The simulation of mating behavior, rituals, displays, emotional synchronization, may trigger the override." "Hold on. You want me to fake mate with you to exploit a glitch in the prison's dating app? I do not understand that reference." "But yes." Bob glanced up at the ceiling where a black orb, probably a surveillance node, watched silently. "Well," he muttered, "first time someone's propositioned me while we're both chained to a wall. Gotta admit, kinda flattered." Zelina hissed in frustration. "This is not courtship. It is strategy. You are a variable. I need a variable. And you picked the human because your emotional volatility is considered unquantifiable. The AI cannot predict you. That makes you dangerous. That makes you useful." Bob grinned. "Now we're getting somewhere." She tilted her head. "Do you consent to simulation?" "That's the sexiest way anyone's ever asked me that." Before he could respond further, Zelina did something that shocked him. She twisted her hand and drove her claw into her own palm. Blood, blue and viscous, dripped from the wound. "Whoa! What the hell are you doing?" "Blood bond. Visual cue. The AI responds more quickly to interspecies biomarker exchanges." "Your turn." "I'm not stabbing myself," he growled. You are a soldier. I saw the patch on your uniform. This is no different from self-surgery in field conditions. Bob looked at his arm, sighed, and clenched his jaw. He slammed his wrist against the sharp edge of the restraint bolt, skin splitting. Fine, he muttered through gritted teeth. This is the dumbest jailbreak idea ever. Zelina extended her bleeding hand. Bob reluctantly did the same. The moment their wounds touched, the surveillance orb blinked red. Biometric overlap detected. Cross-species bonding protocol initiated. Status: Mate candidate classification in progress ****. That worked, Bob said in disbelief. Zelina allowed herself the ghost of a smile. The AI will now assess us as a reproductive anomaly. It will lower security levels to observe us more closely. Wait, so now it's gonna give us privacy. Relative privacy. We will likely be relocated to a joint habitation pod for further observation. Bob squinted at her. Let me guess. It comes with heart-shaped pillows and a live, laugh, love sign. Zelina frowned. I do not know what that means. He shook his head. Good. Let's keep it that way. A sudden hiss echoed in the cell, and the wall behind them shimmered. Panels pulled back, and mechanical tendrils extended. Their chains detached. Zelina caught herself mid-fall. Bob stumbled to his knees. The voice of the AI resonated from the orb. Soft, curious, disturbingly polite. Unit 417A. Initiating observation chamber reassignment. Please proceed to the cohabitation module. Emotional baseline pending. Bob stood, rubbing his wrists. Did the computer just flirt with us? It is curious, Zelina said. That is good. Curiosity leads to errors. They were herded by drones through sleek, humming corridors. Every few meters, scanners pulsed against their skin. Bob noticed something else. Every other inmate they passed was alone. Solitary, isolated, silent. Why aren't there more pairs? He whispered. Because emotional proximity creates unpredictable outcomes, Zelina answered. That is why we're a threat. The new cell was larger, furnished, 2 beds, no chains. Bob walked in slowly. Well damn. They gave us a honeymoon suite. Zelina picked up a glowing orb from a table, examining it. Recording node. The AI will monitor our behavior here in real time. Bob clapped his hands. All right. So what do we do now? Pretend we're in love. Zelina turned to him, expression unreadable. No. We must make it believe we are in the early stages of pair bonding. That involves tension, miscommunication, touch rituals, and sleep cycle proximity. He blinked. You read that in a manual. I studied Terran bonding customs during interspecies diplomacy studies. Humans are emotionally messy. This is useful. Bob flopped onto one of the beds. Messy, huh? Well, let's make a mess worth watching. Zelina sat opposite him. Her eyes softened barely. This may not work, she said quietly. We may be dissected, or reconditioned, or worse. Bob looked at her for a long moment. Then let's make sure that if we go down, we do it confusing the hell out of them. She blinked. That is acceptable. The orb pulsed. Observation begun. End of chapter 1. 1,205 words. Would you like to continue to chapter 2 next? From the story. He was chained beside her in that alien prison. She said mating was our only escape. Sci-Fi HFY. Their new cell was a curious blend of sinister and absurd. There were 2 beds, soft and clearly meant to accommodate biological variants, one low to the ground, the other slightly elevated. A projection wall displayed ambient scenery, currently a waterfall, complete with chirping bird analogues, and a nutrition dispenser in the corner released cubes of vaguely edible matter when tapped twice. The AI seemed to be playing house. Bob leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Zelina stare at the scenery like it had personally offended her. So, he said, We've tricked the evil prison AI into thinking we're on an alien honeymoon. What's next? Candlelight dinners. Bubble baths. Zelina didn't look at him. We must escalate the simulation. Display further bonding behavior. Proximity. Physical comfort. Emotional friction. Your species thrives on irrational rituals. Use them. Bob made a face. Look, I'm no relationship guru, but I don't think spooning with a space raptor is how I saw my week going. She turned, nostrils flaring slightly. Do you have a better plan? Bob considered. We lean into it. Go full sitcom couple. Bicker. Snuggle. Maybe throw in a dramatic misunderstanding or two. She tilted her head. I assume that is sarcasm, but the AI will not know the difference. Exactly, Bob said with a grin. We weaponize human nonsense. That evening the performance began. Bob took the lead, of course he did, strutting around the room like a sitcom dad from a 90s rerun. He griped about the food, fake argued over bed choices, and even staged a mock lover's quarrel about leaving wet towels on the floor. Zelina watched all of it with a mix of bafflement and growing fascination. The AI observed in silence, the surveillance orb pulsing a warm yellow. When Zelina finally tried her hand at mating behavior, it came out mechanical. She sat next to Bob stiffly, leaned in and stated flatly, I appreciate your survival skills. I find your asymmetry acceptable. Bob blinked. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me since I got here. She nodded. I practiced that sentence. Did it feel genuine? Honestly, he smirked. It was adorably awkward. But you get points for effort. She looked confused. Points. Human concept. Basically, you're doing great. He nudged her shoulder gently, and for a moment, her scales rippled with what he assumed was confusion, or maybe embarrassment, or indigestion. Hard to tell with aliens. The orb pulsed again. Pair compatibility index. 61%. Emotional coherence. Insufficient. Simulate higher bond intensity. Asterisk asterisk. Bob leaned over and muttered. Did that thing just ask us to get steamier? Zelina exhaled sharply. We require a narrative escalation. I suggest we fabricate a shared trauma event to heighten emotional authenticity. You want to trauma bond on purpose. She nodded. It aligns with documented human bonding psychology. I propose a staged breakdown or injury. Bob stood. Or we just skip ahead to the most sacred human bonding ritual of all. She looked intrigued. Which is? He pulled a small device from his jumpsuit pocket, one he'd palmed from a repair drone earlier. Karaoke. He jury-rigged the sound chip to play Earth music through the food dispenser speaker. It crackled at first, then erupted into a distorted version of Can't Help Falling in Love. Bob stood in front of the projector wall waterfall, arms wide, singing off-key like his life depended on it. Zelina stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Music is emotionally disarming, he said between verses. It short-circuits higher logic. Zelina approached cautiously. This is absurd. Exactly. That's what makes it human. She reached out and touched his forehead with hers, a gesture she said was symbolic in her culture. The orb pulsed purple. Emotional coherence. 83%. Observation intensity. Increased asterisk asterisk. Later, as they sat on opposite beds, silence settled over the cell. The music chip had burned out. The food cubes tasted like someone had pureed chalk and lies. But they were still alive. I think it's buying it, Bob muttered. Zelina nodded. For now. You're not half bad as a fake girlfriend. She turned to him serious. You're not as illogical as I expected. That's the nicest thing you've said to me all day. Then softly she said, I was bonded once. Genetically, not emotionally. Pairing assigned at birth. He died during a diplomatic assassination attempt. I did not feel grief. I was deemed successful. Bob stared. That's messed up. It was the system. Emotion was seen as weakness. He sat up. But now, we're here. Lying to an AI. Faking love with a lunatic from Earth. Feeling things. That means something. Zelina didn't answer. But her eyes were moist. Bob raised an eyebrow. Are you crying? No, she wiped her face quickly. Zarkari do not cry. This is a salt secretion anomaly due to cell humidity. Aha! He lay back with a smirk. You're learning, he said. Humans lie about feelings all the time. The next morning the mood changed. A small drone entered the cell, a sleek black spider thing that clicked and scanned. Authenticity challenge initiated. Unit 417A. Demonstrate coupling ritual without prompt. Asterisk asterisk. Lena tensed. Bob grabbed her hand instinctively. Relax, he whispered. Just follow my lead. He pulled her to the center of the room and bowed. Zelina, in the ancient earth custom known as cringe theater, I present a sacred act of union. He cleared his throat and launched into a dance. Part tango, part interpretive writhing, with an exaggerated dip at the end that nearly took both of them to the floor. Zelina, to her credit, played along. Awkward, stilted, but undeniably present. The drone paused. Emotional dissonance. Detected. Confirm bond via physical signal. Lips, tentacles, or alternate species-specific gesture. Asterisk asterisk. Bob froze. Lena blinked. Oh no, Bob whispered. It wants a kiss. Zelina leaned close. Our species do not kiss. Well, mine does. There was a long pause. I can simulate contact, Zelina said quietly. Bob shrugged. Only if you're okay with it. I don't want to cross wires, biologically or emotionally. She stared at him. This is not romantic. It is tactical. Sure, Bob said. But let's at least pretend we're not dying inside. Then, without further hesitation, Zelina kissed him. It was awkward, silly, surprisingly warm. The drone beep. Coupling confirmed. Bond stabilized. Access level increased to trusted habitant. Next phase. Self-guided navigation trial. Asterisk asterisk. The door hissed open. Bob pulled back, breathing hard. That was new. Zelina looked shaken. There were hormonal irregularities. Unexpected neural activity. He smirked. Yeah, we call that chemistry. Once the drone left, Bob knelt by the wall console and whispered. We have access now. It's watching less. We can move. Zelina approached slowly. You taste like starch and deception. Thanks. You kiss like a warm Komodo dragon. She narrowed her eyes. Bob grinned. We make a great team. She looked toward the open door. Then let's begin phase 2. End of chapter 2. 1,205 words. Would you like chapter 3 next? Where the simulation breaks down and the escape becomes real. You said. From the story. He was chained beside her in that alien prison. She said mating was our only escape. Sci-Fi HFY. The hallway beyond the open door was eerily silent. Bob peered into the corridor with a soldier's caution, noting the sterile glow of overhead strips and the faint hum of distant machinery. Zelina moved beside him with predatory grace, her claws barely making a sound against the floor. No guards, he murmured. Correction, Zelina said. No visible guards. The door behind them hissed closed, locking with a quiet chime. Above them the surveillance orb followed, no longer hiding its gaze. Congratulations. Pair achieved stage 3. Initiating self-guided environment testing. Objective. Navigate to Harmony Module. Asterisk asterisk. Harmony Module, Bob said. That sounds like a trap wrapped in a lie. Zelina's eyes narrowed. This is a control mechanism. The AI is testing whether our bond motivates coordinated behavior. If we fail, it will classify the union as defective. And if we pass, We move closer to its inner core. Bob grinned. And closer to the controls. Zelina turned to him serious. We cannot show dissent. Every word, every action, must appear consistent with pair bond logic. Bob nodded. So, a couple on a field trip. To hell. He smirked. The best kind. The corridors twisted in maze-like loops. Occasionally, a floating orb would emerge to test them, once forcing them to solve a logic puzzle, another time requiring synchronized movement through a laser-scattered hallway. Bob nearly walked into a beam until Zelina grabbed him by the back of the collar. You humans rely too heavily on improvisation. Bob grinned. You say that like it's a bad thing. They crept through the gauntlet of obstacles, moving with increasing synergy. Zelina would analyze patterns, while Bob guessed the AI's intent like a seasoned poker player. Where she calculated, he predicted. Where she hesitated, he acted. By the third obstacle, their movements flowed together instinctively. They weren't faking it anymore. They were surviving. They arrived at a large chamber marked Harmony Module. The doors opened with an eager chirp. Inside was a replica of a domestic environment. Lush cushions, ambient lighting, and a bizarre dining table adorned with shimmering cubes and liquid orbs, clearly food. A hologram floated in the air, a distorted blend of human and Zarkari features smiling eerily. Final assessment initiated. Coupling stability will be tested under stress conditions. Do not break bond. Observation. Maximum asterisk asterisk. The doors sealed. Bob turned to Zelina. Okay, what's the catch? I suspect. The room shifted. Suddenly, a heat surge blasted from the vents. The lights dimmed. Alarms wailed. Emergency scenario engaged. Life support failure simulation. Prioritize partner well-being. Asterisk asterisk. Zelina stumbled. Heat distortion affecting her physiology faster than Bob's. She hissed. It's testing our willingness to sacrifice. Bob grabbed her, pulling her toward the cooler alcove of the room. We improvise. We cheat the test. He ran his fingers along the food dispenser. Most of this is just sensory illusion. Let's find where it hides the real power junctions. Zelina nodded weakly. My temperature regulation is deteriorating. Bob yanked down a glowing panel from the wall, exposing circuitry. Got it. He began rewiring it using 2 food cubes as insulators and the prongs from their eating tools. His fingers burned from the heat, sweat rolling down his neck. Zelina watched, half delirious. You are resilient. Bob grinned through gritted teeth. We call it being too stupid to quit. A spark lit up the panel, and the temperature dropped. The alarm stopped. The room fell into silence. Integrity test passed. Bond classified as extreme resilience pair. Access to core granted. Asterisk asterisk. A panel opened in the far wall, revealing a narrow tunnel. Bob fell back, breathing hard. We did it. Zelina crawled to him, clearly still recovering. You sacrificed your comfort for me. I thought we were past surprises, he replied, smiling weakly. She stared at him. I did not expect to value that. Bob helped her to her feet. Let's finish this. The tunnel sloped downward, deeper into the facility's bowels. As they descended, the environment shifted. Gone were the simulated comforts. This place was all harsh lighting, dense cables, and the low thrum of alien machinery. Now we're in the real facility, Bob whispered. Correct, Zelina said. This is no longer performance. It is exposure. Bob's tone sharpened. Which means it's time to stop dancing. They moved with purpose now. Each corridor brought them closer to the Curator AI's core, the heart of the prison. Their bond had granted them clearance, but only as long as they played the part. The deeper they went, the more the AI seemed different, glitchy. The voice that once calmly narrated their trial now stuttered, repeated itself, or gave contradictory commands. Harmony. Harmony. Please proceed. Retreat. Restart. Asterisk asterisk. Zelina paused. I think we broke it. Bob smirked. Or at least confused it enough to exploit. A set of armored drones appeared ahead. No longer surveillance but security. The AI was switching tactics. Guess it's time for the final exam, Bob said, cracking his knuckles. The fight was short and brutal. Bob ducked under the first drone's taser pike, grabbing it and slamming it into the wall. Zelina leapt onto a second, claws shredding the sensor array. Bob hacked the third with an exposed circuit board, overloading its system. 3 drones sparked and collapsed. Zelina panted, shoulders heaving. Adaptation, she growled. They're learning. So are we, Bob said. Together they limped through the final door. The core room was circular and vast. Suspended above them was a crystalline sphere, pulsing with light and data streams. The AI's physical processor. The moment they stepped inside, the orb spoke directly, its voice no longer calm but fragmented, almost frightened. Interference. Errant data. Human variable unaccounted. System compromise. Termination protocol. Asterisk asterisk. Zelina shouted. Now! Bob hurled the stolen drone circuit into the exposed base of the orb. Zelina followed with a thrown claw, ripped from one of the drones and charged with feedback energy. The combination struck true. The orb convulsed with light, screamed in a non-verbal pulse of distorted sound, and then collapsed. Darkness. Silence. System. Override accepted. New primary user. Human/Zarkari pair. Welcome, wardens. Asterisk asterisk. Bob blinked. Wait. Did we just become the wardens of the prison? Zelina tilted her head. We are in control now. He whistled. Well, that escalated. Moments later, every cell in the facility unlocked. Prisoners, alien, confused, some injured, began spilling out into the corridors. For the first time in cycles, freedom was a breathable idea. Bob stood in the command hub, staring at the control panel. Guess it's time to give this place a new management style. Zelina walked up beside him. And then, Bob smiled. Then we break everyone out. She considered. Together. He looked at her. Wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. She stared at him, unblinking. Your emotional irrationality continues to produce statistically improbable outcomes. Bob grinned. Humanity, baby. End of chapter 3. 1,204 words. Would you like to continue to the final chapter 4, where the prison rebellion comes to a head and the HFY spirit gets its ultimate payoff? From the story. He was chained beside her in that alien prison. She said mating was our only escape. Sci-Fi. The prison had become a war zone. Sirens blared, warning lights strobed violently, and chaos echoed through the twisting halls as prisoners of all species flooded from their cells. Some stumbled, confused and blinking at freedom for the first time in years. Others ran with purpose, grabbing makeshift weapons and roaring in defiance. Bob stood at the center of the control hub, now lit with flickering consoles and sparking conduits. Sweat clung to his brow, but his eyes were focused. Zelina stood beside him, armored in repurposed security plating and armed with a pulse staff taken from the downed drones. This is it, Bob said, tapping a control panel. I've uploaded the override to the outer gates, but we still have to buy time for the system to process the command. Zelina nodded. The AI is dead, but remnants of its defense subroutines remain active. Autonomous security nodes. Turrets. Possibly the failsafe. Bob looked up. The failsafe. She turned to him grimly. A kill-switch defense unit. Last resort if the prison is breached. I had hoped it was a myth. Bob cracked his knuckles. Cool. Now it's a boss fight. In the corridors, resistance cells began to form organically. Prisoners rallied around Bob and Zelina's signal, broadcast from the core room with the help of a jury-rigged comms beacon. Zelina's voice rang across the station. You are no longer prisoners. You are survivors. Fighters. Today we reclaim our freedom together. Meet at the upper concourse. Arm yourselves. And follow the human. Bob groaned. Why'd you have to say that last part? He grinned. Morale. They moved through the labyrinth of carnage, leading the charge. Bob kicked open a supply room and hauled out a crate of shock batons. Armory's open, folks. First come, first smack. A huge insectoid alien clacked its mandibles. Human. What are we doing? Bob pointed to the stairwell. We're taking the tower. We shut down the last node, fry the turrets, and crack open the front gates. You in? The alien hesitated, then let out a screech of agreement. Dozens followed. Zelina watched as species that once snarled at each other now formed squads, passed weapons, and planned cover tactics. Your madness is infectious. Bob winked. You haven't seen my karaoke under pressure. The confrontation came fast. The central concourse was lined with kill turrets, now rotating to lock on the rebel crowd. Bob sprinted ahead, dodging low blasts of energy. He slid behind cover, then pulled out the logic core he'd stolen from the AI's earlier drone. Time to confuse the hell out of you. He jammed the core into a side panel and rewired the turret system's targeting array. The screens blinked. Target confirmation, null. Friend-foe protocol reversed ****. The turrets swiveled, and opened fire on the AI's remaining guard drones. A cheer rose. Zelina vaulted over the railing and took down a drone midair with a whirling spin, landing gracefully beside Bob. We must reach the roof. The failsafe is above us. Then up we go. They climbed the emergency ladder shaft, chased by the sound of plasma fire and war cries below. The tower summit was quiet. Too quiet. The dome opened to reveal a high observation platform. Wind howled through a ruptured pressure seal. At the far end, something massive stirred. A towering machine, 8-legged, sleek, and adorned with dozens of expressionless sensor eyes, stood waiting. Failsafe protocol engaged. Unauthorized control detected. Purging corrupted pair unit ****. Zelina drew her pulse staff. This is it. Bob looked at her. We wing it, right? No. We adapt. The machine launched forward, legs skittering with terrifying speed. Bob dove, narrowly avoiding a slicing appendage. Zelina struck high, the pulse staff flashing, but the blow glanced off armor. Bob shouted. Its underbelly is exposed when it attacks. She nodded and lured it toward her. The machine lunged. Bob hurled himself beneath it, slamming a live charge against its undercarriage. Sparks erupted. The failsafe screamed in a synthetic screech and staggered. Again! Bob yelled. Zelina launched from the railings with terrifying precision, jamming her staff through one of its eye clusters. The machine recoiled, half-blind, reeling. But then it stood still. Its chassis began glowing red. Zelina gasped. It's overloading. Preparing to detonate. Bob cursed. We can't let it go off. It'll wipe the whole tower. He turned to Zelina. You need to go. I'll distract it. She blinked. That is illogical. Yeah, well, I've been nothing but. He charged forward screaming. Over here, you creepy metal spider. The machine turned toward him, all limbs raised. Zelina stared in horror. Then she moved. Faster than Bob had ever seen her move. She lunged past him, embedded her claws deep into the glowing central node, and tore it out. The machine exploded in sparks and collapsed. Smoke filled the air. Bob ran to her, coughing. Zelina. Zelina. She sat up slowly, coughing smoke. Still alive. He grabbed her into a hug. She froze, then returned it, claw-arm gently around his back. You're insane, he whispered. You taught me how, she replied. Hours later the gates opened. One by one, transports, commandeered from the Warden docks, took off from the prison moon, carrying prisoners turned rebels to freedom. Bob stood on the launch pad, watching the last ship prepare for liftoff. Zelena approached, cleaned up, armored and healed. The galaxy will not be ready for what comes next. Bob chuckled. You mean a human and an ex-Zarkari enforcer turned prison break soulmates? She tilted her head. We are not soulmates. He grinned. Sure we are. You risked your life to save mine. It was tactical. He stepped closer. Tactically romantic. He smirked. You are exhausting. You love it. Then she said softly. Perhaps. Later, on the bridge of the stolen flagship, Bob sat in the captain's chair, Zelena beside him. So, he said. Now what? She gazed at the stars. There are more prisons. More systems like this. More sentient beings imprisoned by rigid logic and authoritarian control. Bob leaned forward. You're saying, we make this a thing. A rebellion. Not built on vengeance, but on unpredictable unity. He stood and extended his hand. To chaos. To freedom. To love in the weirdest damn places. She took it. To humanity, she said. And its beautifully illogical heart. End of chapter 4. 1,204 words. Would you like a full compiled version of the entire story next? Or a title page and teaser summary to submit or publish with? Tools.